Welcome back, students. Today we're going to talk about the Electoral College. The Electoral College is the method that we use to elect the president every 4 years, and it's very different from a popular vote. A popular vote is maybe what you're thinking about when you think about a typical election. It's the kind of vote where you just count up the number of votes, and whoever has the most votes wins. We don't do it that way to elect our president. We might elect other offices that way, but it is not the way that the president is chosen. The president is chosen through the Electoral College, and there's some important details that make it different from a popular vote. So let's look at some of those important details and figure out how the Electoral College works. Citizens vote by states for the Electoral College. Since there's no national popular vote, popular voting happens within each one of the states. So Virginia will conduct an election, North Carolina, and Florida, and New York, California, and all the other states will conduct an election on election day. And the results of those elections within those states is really important. Because the winners of each one of those state elections are going to have an important impact on who the president is going to be, but in a different and special way. Notice on this map, and this explains the Electoral College, that each state has a number value on it. That number value is the number of Electoral College votes, or electors, that state is worth. Virginia is worth 13, California is worth 55, New York is worth 29, Montana is worth 3. Those numbers are very important. Those Electoral College votes are put in place to weight each state based on population. So states with more people in them are going to have a higher number and going to be worth more Electoral College votes. When the election in each state happens, the winner of that election is going to be awarded some or all of the Electoral College votes that state is worth. So you can look at the Electoral College map and think of it as a big board game where each state is worth a different amount of points or a different prize, and it's up to the candidates to win those numbers if they want to win the presidency. There are 538 Electoral College votes possible. So you can think of this as 538 points on the board that these candidates have to win. How do we get to this number 538? Well, it comes from adding up the representation in Congress and a couple of votes from D.C. Across the country, there are 435 House of Representatives districts. There are 100 senators in Congress. So you add these two together and you get 535. Thanks to the 23rd Amendment, Washington, D.C. gets 3 Electoral College votes. Even though it does not have representation in Congress, it still gets 3 Electoral College votes. So put these numbers together and you get 538. 3 going to D.C. and 100 spread around the states because of the senators, and then the 435 votes spread across the country based on population. There's an additional rule that if a candidate is going to win the presidency, they have to win the majority of the Electoral College votes that are available. That's one more than half. If you take 538 divided by 2 and add 1, you get 270. So watch the news on any election night, and one of the big numbers that you'll see the media talking about is 270. That's the number of Electoral College votes that a candidate has to win in order to be president. And you also need to remember that this is not just a mathematical thing. The electors, or the Electoral College vote, that are spread out around the country, these electors are actually real people, and they have an important job to do. They meet a couple of weeks after Election Day, and they have their votes counted, and that vote becomes the official vote for our president. This, of course, used to be much more of an important thing in the early days of our country, but it's still a part of how we do things. So these electors are picked by each party in every state. And electors are won by candidates in one of two different ways. Candidate can win an election, can win electors in most states either with the winner-take-all method or the congressional district model. The winner-take-all method is more common and a little more simple. What it means is if you win the popular vote in that state, you take all the electors that that state has to offer. So for Virginia, for example, if a candidate gets more people in Virginia to vote for them, they take all 13 electoral college votes that the state of Virginia has to offer. This is winner take all. Winner of the election in that state takes all the electoral college votes. Most states do it this way, but there are two states out there that do something a little different. They use the congressional district model. It's very similar in the fact that they're counting up people, but instead of counting up people across the entire state, the states that use this, Maine and Nebraska, divide their vote down by congressional district. Whoever wins in a congressional district wins the point, the elector that that district is worth. And then the two statewide electoral college votes that are represented by the senators or connected to the senators are won by the popular vote in the state. This method is a little more complicated and it's not used as commonly. There are only two states that do this. They're Maine and Nebraska. It's also important that you understand how the Electoral College affects how people campaign when they run for president. Candidates know how the rules work. They know what demographics are like across the country. And they use these two facts to create their strategy for winning the election. The Electoral College and the way that the people and opinions are spread out around our country makes it so that you can essentially divide states in the United States down into three categories. And those three categories are states that are probably going to go overwhelmingly Democrat, states that are probably going to go overwhelmingly Republican, and states that could go either way. The states that you see here in blue are states that historically and typically have more Democratic voters in them than Republican voters, and are likely, if not certainly, going to go for a Democratic candidate on election day. And these states over here in the red are states that historically and typically have more Republican voters living in them than Democratic voters, and they're going to go for a Republican candidate on election day. So these two categories of states here are kind of locked in. Guaranteed Democrat, guaranteed Republican. There's a third category called swing states. Swing states are states that could go either way. They could swing to the Democratic side, they could swing to the Republican side. These are states that have kind of a close to even split between Democratic voters and Republican voters. And the win in these states is really going to be determined by kind of the issues that are in play during that campaign, or how the presidential candidates campaign, what they tell people, what they promise. So swing states are where candidates spend most of their time and most of their energy campaigning. They go to these states where they know they can hopefully pull people to their side, win that state, and win those points on the Electoral College map. Most of the time it's pretty easy for a candidate to win 270 Electoral College votes, even if it's by a small margin. Sometimes it's not possible or it doesn't happen. So what happens if nobody gets to 270 Electoral College votes? Well, the rule in the Constitution says that the House of Representatives picks the president. This obviously does not happen very often. You have to go back to 1824 for a really solid example. And during this example, we had 4 people running for president, and they split the Electoral College vote down pretty dramatically. Since nobody had the majority, the House of Representatives picked the president. Another situation that the Electoral College system can create is a situation where you have one candidate win the popular vote and one candidate win the Electoral College. This happened recently in the 2000 election. Candidate Al Gore got more Americans to vote for him. He won the national popular vote. But remember, this is not the number that we go on to determine who our next president is going to be. George Bush in 2000 won 271 Electoral College votes. And he did that by winning these states on the map down here. Add up all those red states and their numbers. That's going to get you 271. That's the magic number. It cleared that 270 mark. And this is the reason why President Bush was elected in 2000 and Al Gore was not, even though Al Gore had more people vote for him. Similar thing happened in the 2016 election. Donald Trump won 290 Electoral College votes, which is well above the 270 mark that is required for victory. Hillary Clinton won only 228 Electoral College votes. So she didn't make the cut, she didn't make the mark, even though she had more people vote for her across the country than voted for Donald Trump. So this is kind of the reality of how our system works. These possibilities can happen. Bring your notes and bring your questions to class, and we'll talk about this in more detail when we meet together. Thanks.